Speak have. You ever stopped and asked yourself a simple but uncomfortable question, why am I unhappy? Not just having a bad day, not just feeling tired, but truly unhappy. Many people spend years chasing happiness without ever understanding why it keeps slipping away. They blame their job, their relationships, their finances, or even their circumstances. But what if the real reason is nandapos outside of you? What if itandapos, hidden in the choices you make every single day? Happiness is nandapos, something you accidentally discover. It is nandapos, waiting at the next promotion, the next relationship, or the next expensive purchase. If happiness depended on those things, then everyone who had them would be fulfilled. Yet some of the wealthiest, most successful, and most admired people still feel empty inside. That tells us something important. External success can never replace internal peace. Many people wake up every morning living someone else's nandapos definition of success. They follow expectations instead of purpose. They seek approval instead of authenticity. They compare their lives to carefully edited versions of other people and nandapos lives and wonder why they never feel enough. Every comparison steals a little more joy. Every attempt to impress others moves them further away from who they truly are. Another reason people stay unhappy is because they wait. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect timing, or the perfect version of themselves before taking action. They believe happiness is a destination somewhere in the future instead of something created by meaningful progress today. But life rewards movement, not hesitation. Your habits shape your emotions more than your circumstances do. The conversations you have, the people you spend time with, the thoughts you repeat, and the decisions you make every day either build a meaningful life or slowly drain your energy. Small daily choices become your future reality. Perhaps the greatest cause of unhappiness is living without purpose. When your actions don't opposite connect to something bigger than yourself, every challenge feels pointless. But when you know why you wake up every morning, even difficult days become meaningful because they are moving you towards something that matters. The good news is this: unhappiness is not your permanent identity. It is often a signal. It tells you that something needs to change, not who you are, but how you are living. The moment you stop blaming the world and start taking responsibility for your direction, everything begins to shift. You don't nandapos need a different life. You need a different perspective, different habits, and a clearer purpose. That is where lasting happiness begins. Many people spend their entire lives chasing something that can never truly satisfy them, the approval of others. From a young age, we are taught to seek praise. We are rewarded for meeting expectations, fitting in, and making people happy. Over time, this becomes more than a habit. It becomes a way of life. We begin making decisions based on what will earn applause rather than what aligns with our values. We choose careers because they impress others, stay in relationships because we fear judgment, and silence our dreams because they don't nandapos, fit someone else's nandapos idea of success. At first, it feels safe because approval offers temporary comfort, but eventually that comfort turns into quiet frustration. Deep inside, you know you nandapos, reliving a life that does nandapos, fully belong to you. The problem with living for approval is that it places your happiness in someone else's nandapos hands. Your confidence rises when people praise you and falls when they criticize you. Your mood depends on opinions you cannot control. No matter how hard you work, there will always be someone who disagrees with your choices, misunderstands your intentions, or expects something different from you. If your identity is built on pleasing everyone, you will constantly feel exhausted because the goal is impossible. Speak. Speak you cannot satisfy every person, and trying to do so only causes you to lose yourself in the process. Purpose, on the other hand, comes from within. It is nandapos, created by applause or recognition. It grows from understanding what matters most to you and choosing to live according to those principles, even when no one is watching. People with purpose are not fearless, but they are clear. They know why they make certain decisions, and that clarity gives them strength during difficult moments. They don't nandapos, waste energy trying to convince everyone that they nandapos are right because they understand that not everyone needs to agree with their path. Living according to your purpose often requires disappointing people. There will be moments when saying yes to your future means saying no to someone else's nandapos expectations. That can feel uncomfortable, especially if you nandapos have spent years trying to keep everyone happy. But every meaningful life includes difficult choices. Every great achievement requires the courage to be misunderstood for a while. Those who change the world rarely begin by following the crowd. They begin by following conviction. Many people confuse popularity with fulfillment. They believe that if enough people admire them, happiness will naturally follow. Yet countless individuals who receive admiration still struggle with emptiness because admiration cannot answer the deeper question of whether they are living authentically. External validation fades quickly. A compliment feels good for a few moments, but then you begin looking for the next one. It becomes an endless cycle where nothing is ever enough. Purpose breaks that cycle because it gives you a reason to keep moving even when recognition is absent. Think about the moments when you have felt most alive. They were probably not the times when everyone approved of you. They were the moments when you were fully engaged in something meaningful, something that reflected who you truly are. Perhaps you were helping someone, building something, learning a new skill, overcoming a challenge, or pursuing a dream that excited you. Those experiences created fulfillment because they came from authenticity, not from performance. Living for purpose also means accepting that mistakes are part of growth. When Unhappiness are obsessed with approval, failure feels devastating because it threatens your image. But when Unhappiness are driven by purpose, failure becomes feedback. It teaches you, strengthens you, and prepares you for the next opportunity. Your focus shifts from protecting your reputation to improving your character. That change in perspective is incredibly freeing because it allows you to keep moving forward instead of being paralyzed by the fear of judgment. Every day presents a choice. You can ask yourself, what will people think? Or you can ask, what kind of person do I want to become? One question keeps you trapped in the opinions of others. The other leads you toward growth, confidence, and lasting fulfillment. The people who live meaningful lives are not those who receive the most approval. They are the ones who remain faithful to their values, even when the crowd does not understand. In the end, the greatest regret is never that too few people approved of your life. It is realizing that you spent too much of it trying to earn permission to become the person you were always capable of being. One of the fastest ways to lose your happiness is to constantly compare your life to someone else's. Comparison has become so common that many people don't even realize how deeply it affects their thinking. Every day they look at other people's achievements, relationships, possessions, and lifestyles, measuring their own worth against what they see. The problem is that they are not comparing reality with reality. They are comparing their behind-the-scenes struggles with someone else's carefully selected highlights. Speak, they see the victories but not the failures, the smiles but not the tears, the success but not the sacrifice. That comparison creates an illusion that everyone else is moving forward while they are standing still. Every person has a unique path, shaped by different experiences, opportunities, challenges, and timing. Yet comparison ignores all of that. It convinces you that because someone your age has achieved more, you must be falling behind. It whispers that because someone else has a bigger house, a better job, or more recognition, your own accomplishments no longer matter. Instead of appreciating how far you come, you become obsessed with how far someone else appears to be. This mindset slowly steals gratitude and replaces it with frustration. The truth is that success is rarely as simple as it looks. Behind every visible achievement are countless invisible moments of discipline, rejection, uncertainty, and persistence. Most people only celebrate the finished product. They don't witness the early mornings, the sleepless nights, the failed attempts, or the years of quiet effort that made success possible. When you compare your beginning to someone else's middle or end, you create unrealistic expectations that leave you feeling discouraged. Comparison also distracts you from your own purpose. Instead of focusing on becoming the best version of yourself, you begin chasing someone else's this definition of success. You change your goals, your priorities, and even your values simply because you want to keep up. Eventually, you may reach destinations you never truly wanted, only to realize they don't bring fulfillment. Happiness cannot be found by living another personandapos' dream. It comes from building a life that reflects your own values, passions, and purpose. One of the greatest dangers of comparison is that it blinds you to your own progress. Growth often happens slowly. You become stronger, wiser, and more capable little by little. But if your attention is always fixed on someone else's achievements, you fail to notice your own improvements. You overlook the habits Yuandapos built, the obstacles Yuandapos overcome, and the skills Yuandapos developed. You become so focused on what you lack that you forget everything Yuandapos have already gained. Social media has made this challenge even greater. Every scroll presents images of vacations, promotions, celebrations, luxury, and success. People naturally share their happiest moments, not their hardest ones. Rarely do you see the anxiety before the achievement, the disappointment after failure, or the sacrifices hidden behind every accomplishment. When you consume these polished snapshots, without remembering that they represent only a fraction of reality, your mind begins creating stories that simply aren't and oppose true. You assume everyone else has life figured out while Yopos, the only one struggling. The healthiest competition is not with another person, but with the person you were yesterday. Real progress is measured by your own growth, not by someone else in Dapos's timeline. Ask yourself whether you are learning, improving, becoming more disciplined, more patient, more courageous, and more intentional than you were before. Those are the comparisons that inspire growth instead of insecurity. They encourage you to keep moving without feeling threatened by another personandapos' success. Itandapos, as also important to understand that someone elseandapos' success does not diminish your potential. Life is not a race with a limited number of winners. Another personandapos says, achievement does not mean there is less opportunity available for you. Instead of viewing successful people as evidence that you wandapos, behind, see them as proof of what is possible. Let their journey inspire you rather than intimidate you. Learn from their discipline instead of envying their results. When you stop comparing your life to everyone, El Sandapos highlight reel, something remarkable happens. You begin to appreciate your own story. Speak. Speak you celebrate small victories that once went unnoticed. You find joy in steady progress instead of chasing impossible perfection. Your confidence grows because it is no longer tied to where someone else stands. It is rooted in the quiet knowledge that your journey is your own, your pace is enough, and your purpose is far more valuable than trying to imitate someone else's path. One of the greatest reasons people remain unhappy is that they spend more time waiting than acting. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect timing, the perfect plan, or the perfect version of themselves before they begin. They convince themselves that next week, next month, or next year will somehow be different. But while they are waiting for life to become easier, life continues moving forward without them. Days become months, months become years, and eventually they realize that what they were really waiting for was the courage to take the first step. The truth is that perfect conditions rarely exist. Every successful person has started with uncertainty, limited resources, and unanswered questions. They did not begin because everything was in place. They began because they understood that clarity comes through action, not before it. Waiting feels safe because it protects you from immediate failure, but it also protects you from growth. Every dream that remains trapped in your mind slowly becomes another source of frustration because deep down, you know you are capable of more. Fear is often disguised as preparation. You tell yourself that you need one more course, one more book, one more conversation, or one more sign before you andapos ready. While learning and planning are valuable, they become dangerous when they replace execution. There comes a point where gathering more information is simply another way of avoiding risk. You already know enough to begin. What you lack is not knowledge, but the willingness to step into uncertainty. Action has a remarkable way of creating momentum. The first workout leads to the second. The first page leads to the next chapter. The first business idea opens the door to new opportunities. The first difficult conversation strengthens your confidence for the next one. Progress is built one decision at a time, not through giant leaps, but through consistent movement. Every small action proves to yourself that you are capable of changing your circumstances. Confidence is not something you gain before acting, it is something you earn by acting repeatedly. Waiting also creates the illusion that happiness exists somewhere in the future. You tell yourself, "Anquot be happy when I get promoted." Anquot iandapos. Be happy when I have more money. Anquot. Or anquot iandapos. I'll be happy when everything settles down. Anquot. But happiness keeps moving because every milestone is quickly replaced by another. If you cannot find purpose in todayandapos, effort, tomorrowapos, achievement will never feel enough. Fulfillment is found in meaningful progress, not in endlessly postponing your joy until some imagined destination. Every opportunity has an expiration date. The business idea Yuandapos had been thinking about, the skill Yuandapos wanted to learn, the relationship Yuandapos wanted to repair, or the goal Yuandapos have dreamed of achieving all require action while the chance still exists. Time is the one resource you can never recover. Money can be earned again. Mistakes can be corrected. Knowledge can be gained. But a day that passes without action is a day that cannot be reclaimed. The cost of waiting is often invisible at first, but over time it becomes one of life and Dapos' greatest regrets. Failure is another reason people hesitate. They imagine embarrassment, rejection, or disappointment, so they choose inaction instead. Yet failure is rarely as damaging as regret. A failed attempt teaches valuable lessons, reveals weaknesses, and builds resilience. Doing nothing teaches nothing except how to remain exactly where you are. Speak. Every accomplished person has experienced setbacks, but those setbacks became stepping stones because they kept moving. They understood that success is not the absence of failure, but the refusal to stop after it. Action also transforms your mindset. When you remain inactive, your fears tend to grow larger because your imagination fills every unknown with doubt. But once you begin, many of those fears disappear because reality replaces assumption. Problems that once seemed overwhelming become manageable when you face them directly. Solutions appear that could never have been seen from the sidelines. Movement creates perspective, while hesitation creates anxiety. Life rewards those who are willing to begin before they feel completely ready. You do not need to know every answer before taking the first step. You only need enough courage to move forward. Every meaningful journey starts with imperfect action. The people who create fulfilling lives are not those who waited for certainty. They are the ones who accepted uncertainty, embraced the discomfort of growth, and trusted that each step would reveal the next. Your future will not be shaped by the dreams you keep imagining, but by the actions you choose to take today. Your emotional state is not created only by the major events in your life. It is shaped, little by little, by the habits you repeat every single day. Many people believe their happiness depends on circumstances beyond their control, but they often overlook the quiet routines that are influencing their thoughts, energy, and attitude. The way you begin your morning, the conversations you have, the content you consume, the food you eat, the amount of movement you get, and even the words you say to yourself all contribute to how you feel. These habits may seem insignificant on their own, but over time, they become the foundation of your emotional well-being. Every habit is like casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. When you wake up and immediately fill your mind with negativity, complaints, or endless scrolling through social media, you are training your brain to focus on comparison, distraction, and dissatisfaction. Before your day has even begun, your attention has already been pulled toward what you lack instead of what you have. That repeated pattern slowly conditions your mind to expect stress rather than opportunity. Eventually, feeling overwhelmed becomes normal, not because life is impossible, but because your habits have taught your mind to see the world through that lens. On the other hand, small positive habits can dramatically change your emotional state. Taking a few moments to reflect on what you are grateful for, exercising regularly, reading something that inspires you, or spending time in quiet thought can shift your perspective before the demands of the day take over. These actions do not remove every challenge, but they strengthen your ability to respond to those challenges with clarity and resilience. They remind you that while you cannot always control what happens around you, you can influence how you prepare yourself to face it. Your environment also becomes a habit. The people you spend time with, the conversations you participate in, and the influences you allow into your life quietly shape your emotions. If you are constantly surrounded by negativity, gossip, excuses, or pessimism, those attitudes begin to affect your own thinking. Energy is contagious. The people closest to you often influence your beliefs more than you realize. Choosing relationships that encourage growth, honesty, and hope is not about avoiding reality. It is about protecting your mindset from becoming trapped in constant negativity. The habits of your mind are just as important as the habits of your body. Many people repeatedly tell themselves stories of failure. They wake up believing they are not good enough, not talented enough, or not capable of change. Every time they repeat those thoughts, they strengthen them. Eventually, those beliefs become automatic, shaping every decision they make. If you constantly speak to yourself with criticism and doubt, your emotional state will reflect that inner conversation. But when you intentionally replace destructive thoughts with truthful, encouraging ones, you begin to build confidence from the inside out. The voice you hear most often is your own, so make sure it is helping you grow instead of holding you back. Discipline also plays a powerful role in emotional health. Many people think discipline limits freedom, but the opposite is often true. A lack of discipline creates chaos. Irregular sleep, unhealthy eating, constant procrastination, and unfinished responsibilities lead to stress and guilt. Each avoided task adds another weight to your mind. In contrast, completing what you said you would do creates a quiet sense of confidence. Keeping promises to yourself builds trust in your own character. That trust becomes emotional stability because you know you can rely on yourself even when life becomes difficult. It is important to remember that habits do not produce instant results. One healthy meal will not transform your body, and one positive morning routine will not completely change your mindset. But repeated over weeks, months, and years, these small choices reshape your life. The same is true for negative habits. One night of poor sleep may not seem significant, but repeated carelessness toward your health and mindset slowly drains your energy and enthusiasm. The direction of your habits matters far more than the speed of your progress. If you want a different emotional state, do not begin by chasing bigger achievements. Begin by examining your daily routines. Ask yourself whether your habits are feeding your peace or your anxiety, your confidence or your insecurity, your purpose or your distractions. Lasting happiness is rarely built through dramatic changes. It grows through consistent actions that align with the person you want to become. Every day offers a new opportunity to make small decisions that strengthen your mind, protect your peace, and create a life where joy is not dependent on circumstances, but rooted in the habits you choose to practice every single day. One of the most common reasons people remain unhappy is not because they lack opportunities, but because they avoid the conversations and changes that could transform their lives. It is easier to stay silent than to speak an uncomfortable truth. It is easier to tolerate a situation than to risk conflict. It is easier to remain where you are than to step into the uncertainty of change. Yet every time you avoid what needs to be addressed, the problem does not disappear. It grows. What begins as a small issue slowly becomes a heavy burden, affecting your peace of mind, your relationships, your confidence, and your future. Many people believe avoiding conflict protects them from pain, but avoidance usually creates a different kind of pain. Instead of facing a difficult conversation for a few minutes, they carry stress for weeks, months, or even years. They remain in unhealthy relationships because they fear rejection. They stay in jobs that drain them because they fear failure. They ignore misunderstandings with family and friends because they fear confrontation. On the surface, everything appears calm, but internally they feel frustrated, exhausted, and trapped. Silence may feel comfortable in the moment, but unresolved issues have a way of demanding attention eventually. Difficult conversations are rarely about winning an argument. They are about creating honesty where there has been confusion, building understanding where there has been distance, and making room for growth where there has been stagnation. Speaking the truth with respect takes courage because you cannot control how others will respond. Some people may disagree, others may become defensive. Speak. Avoiding the conversation guarantees that nothing improves. Progress begins the moment someone is willing to speak with honesty, and listen with humility. The same principle applies to personal change. Many people know exactly what needs to change in their lives. They know they need to improve their health, become more disciplined, stop procrastinating, let go of toxic relationships, or pursue the dream they have been postponing. The challenge is not a lack of awareness. The challenge is the discomfort that change requires. Every meaningful transformation asks you to leave behind familiar habits, familiar environments, and sometimes even familiar people. That transition feels uncomfortable because your mind naturally prefers what is predictable, even if it is unhealthy. Growth has never been comfortable. Every new level of your life demands a new version of you. The habits that brought you this far may not be enough to take you further. The mindset that once protected you may now be limiting you. Holding on to old patterns because they feel familiar only delays the life you are capable of creating. Change is not a sign that your past was wrong. It is a sign that your future requires something greater. Many people wait until they are forced to change. They wait for their health to decline before exercising. They wait for a relationship to fall apart before communicating honestly. They wait until financial pressure becomes overwhelming before learning new skills. They wait for circumstances to leave them with no other choice. But wisdom chooses change before crisis demands it. The strongest people do not ignore warning signs. They respond while there is still time to grow without unnecessary suffering. Avoiding difficult conversations also damages your relationship with yourself. Every time you stay silent when you should speak, you teach yourself that your voice does not matter. Every time you ignore your values to keep others comfortable, you slowly lose confidence in your own judgment. Self-respect is built by acting in alignment with what you know is right, even when doing so feels uncomfortable. Confidence grows each time you choose courage over convenience. It is also important to understand that not every difficult conversation ends the way you hope. Sometimes honesty strengthens a relationship, and sometimes it reveals that the relationship cannot continue in its current form. Sometimes change brings immediate results, and sometimes it requires patience before the benefits become visible. But choosing honesty and growth always leaves you stronger than choosing avoidance. Even when outcomes are uncertain, your character becomes more resilient because you learn that you are capable of facing reality instead of running from it. Life has a way of presenting the same lessons repeatedly until we are willing to learn them. The conversation you avoid today may return tomorrow in a different form. The change you resist now may become unavoidable later. The longer you postpone growth, the heavier the burden becomes. But the moment you decide to face what you have been avoiding, something shifts. Fear begins to lose its power. Clarity replaces confusion. Confidence replaces hesitation. You discover that the hardest step was never the conversation itself or the change itself. It was deciding to begin. The path to lasting happiness is not found by escaping discomfort, but by having the courage to face it, grow through it, and become stronger because of it. Many people spend years working harder than ever before, yet they still feel empty inside. They wake up, follow the same routine, complete their responsibilities, and go to bed, wondering why nothing feels meaningful. It is nandapos because they lack ability or ambition. Often, itandapos because they have lost sight of their anquat why. End quote, they know what they are doing and how they are doing it, but they no longer remember why they started in the first place. Speak. Speak without a clear purpose. Even success can feel hollow, and every challenge begins to seem like a burden instead of an opportunity for growth. Your anquat why is the deeper reason behind your actions. It is the purpose that gives direction to your effort and meaning to your sacrifices. It is what keeps you moving when motivation disappears and circumstances become difficult. Goals can inspire you for a short time, but purpose sustains you for a lifetime. A goal is something you achieve, while your purpose is something you continue to live every single day. When your actions are connected to something greater than temporary comfort or personal recognition, you develop a resilience that cannot be easily shaken. Many people lose their anquat why because life becomes crowded with distractions. Daily responsibilities, financial pressures, endless notifications, and other people in Dapos's expectations slowly take over their attention. They become so busy surviving that they stop reflecting on where they're going. Instead of making intentional choices, they begin living on autopilot. Days blend into weeks, weeks into months, and eventually years pass without them asking whether they are building a life that truly reflects their values. Activity replaces purpose, and busyness creates the illusion of progress even when there is no meaningful direction. Another reason people lose their purpose is because they begin chasing external rewards instead of internal fulfillment. At first, they may have started with a genuine passion to serve, create, or make a difference. But over time, the focus shifts toward money, status, recognition, or approval. While these things can be valuable, they cannot become the foundation of a meaningful life. External rewards are temporary. Once you achieve them, your mind immediately looks for the next accomplishment. If your happiness depends only on those rewards, you will constantly feel like something is missing. Purpose, however, provides satisfaction even before success arrives because the work itself becomes meaningful. Difficult seasons can also cause people to forget their why. Repeated failures, disappointments, criticism, or unexpected setbacks can slowly wear down enthusiasm. What once felt exciting begins to feel impossible. In those moments, it is easy to believe that your dreams are no longer worth pursuing. But purpose is often tested before it is fulfilled. Challenges are not always signs that you are on the wrong path. Sometimes they are preparing you for greater responsibility, stronger character, and deeper wisdom. Those who remain connected to their purpose understand that obstacles are part of the journey, not evidence that the journey should end. When you know your why, ordinary tasks take on extraordinary meaning. Early mornings become easier because they serve a purpose. Long hours become worthwhile because they contribute to something bigger than immediate comfort. Temporary setbacks lose their power because they are viewed as lessons instead of defeats. Your purpose changes the way you interpret both success and failure. Success becomes an opportunity to create greater impact, while failure becomes valuable feedback rather than a reason to quit. Rediscovering your why requires honesty. You must ask yourself difficult questions. What truly matters to you? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? What values do you want your life to represent? What work gives you energy instead of draining it? Whose lives do you want to improve? These questions cannot be answered by anyone else. They require quiet reflection and the courage to listen to your own convictions instead of the expectations of the crowd. Your purpose is not found by copying another personandapos path. It is discovered by understanding who you are and what you have been uniquely called to contribute. Purpose also grows stronger through action. You do not need every answer before you begin. Speak. Many people believe they must completely understand their life mission before taking the first step. But clarity often comes through movement. Every act of service, every lesson learned, every challenge overcome, and every opportunity embraced reveals more about the direction you are meant to follow. Waiting for absolute certainty only delays growth. Purpose becomes clearer as you consistently choose progress over hesitation. A life without purpose often feels exhausting because every obstacle appears meaningless. But a life guided by a strong why transforms even the hardest seasons into opportunities for growth. Your purpose reminds you that your struggles are shaping your character, your discipline is building your future, and your efforts matter even when the results are not yet visible. When you reconnect with your why, you stop merely existing and start living with intention. You no longer measure your life only by what you achieve, but by the difference you make, the values you uphold, and the person you become along the way. Thank you for listening. As you leave today, remember this: happiness isn't something you stumble upon, it's something you build. It's built through the choices you make, the habits you practice, the courage you show, and the purpose you choose to live for every single day. Stop seeking approval from people who can never define your worth. Stop comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is the one you decide to act. Build habits that strengthen your mind instead of weakening it. Have the courage to face the conversations you've been avoiding, and never lose sight of the reason that makes your life meaningful. You don't need a different life to become happier. You need a different mindset, a clearer purpose, and the discipline to live according to your values every day. Years from now, don't let your greatest regret be that you had the potential to change but never took the first step. Let your story be one of courage, growth, and intentional living. Start where you are, use what you have, become who you were created to be, because the moment you stop chasing happiness and start living with purpose, happiness has a way of finding you. Thank you, and remember, your future is shaped not by what happens to you, but by the decisions you make starting today.